Major breaking news. President Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi have made another major change at the ATF. According to reports from AMLAN, specifically Marvin Richardson, the longtime deputy director who apparently was encouraging much of Joe Biden's anti-gun efforts at the ATF, is now gone. He has now been asked to leave the agency, and he has now apparently left the ATF, where he's in the process of going out the door. Let's break this all down. Again, personnel is policy. If you change the personnel at ATF to people that support the Second Amendment, we're 1,000 times better off. Let's break it down. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxed Iron, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards, for that great honor. All right, so according to major reporting by John Crump of AMLAN, it turns out, based on his reporting, Deputy Director of the ATF, Marvin Richardson, has been forced out of his position. He is no longer with the ATF. He has been dismissed, or at least he's in the process of being dismissed, according to the reporting. So basically, that's where he is. And this is great news because, according to the reporting by Mr. Crump, who always does a great job over there at AMLAN, Mr. Richardson has been with the ATF for several decades. He's worked for multiple presidents. That sounds like a deep state creature to me. You tell me, maybe my opinion is wrong, but that's how I view it. He supposedly was the driving force behind the ATF's war on pistol braces, as well as going after privately manufactured firearms, and now he is gone. This is great news because this allows Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi to replace Marvin Richardson with someone who will be more, or at least somewhat, pro-Second Amendment, I suspect. And this is great news. I'm sure if it's anything like what we saw with the appointment of Professor Rob Leiter, who's great on the Second Amendment, as the counsel of the ATF, who replaced Pam Hicks, who was known for being anti-gun and pro-ATF and anti-gun industry and so on. Pam Hicks is gone, as is Marvin Richardson is gone from the ATF, because the decision was made by Donald Trump and Pam Bondi to try, apparently, to get someone they perceive to be more favorable to the right to keep and bear arms than Miss Hicks and Mr. Richardson. All this is in the reporting of AMLAN, which I'll put a link to the article down below, and you tell me what you think. Now, according to this reporting by Mr. Crump, there were meetings between Marvin Richardson and the Biden transition team back then in 2020, 2021. And it was Mr. Richardson who had articulated that he was no fan of pistols equipped with braces, which he viewed as a loophole to the National Firearms Act. And when I hear the word loophole, I immediately think of, well, you're just complying with the law. If you don't like how the law is written, go to Congress and have the law changed. There's also other stories in this article by Mr. Crump about how Mr. Richardson did work closely with Stephen Dettelbach, the director of the ATF under Joe Biden, to advance the gun control agenda. I should also notice that we are also now aware that Kash Patel, who was the acting director of the ATF, is no longer in that position, is now Dan Driscoll, who's a Republican, pro-Second Amendment Republican who ran for Congress out of North Carolina. He's now the Secretary of the Army, and I think that is a positive development. I think it continues to be a positive development. I think Kash Patel was great on the Second Amendment. I think Dan Driscoll is great on the Second Amendment as well. I think we're all going to be fine. Specifically, if you look at the quotes from people like Larry Keane, the head of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, about Mr. Driscoll, that all looks to be a positive development for our Second Amendment rights. And if you want to shrink the ATF, that also is very good news. Keep in mind the way the ATF needs to go. Let me be clear about the end result. The ATF's law enforcement agents should be gone, okay? They should either be moved to another federal law enforcement agency like the FBI or some other group, and the only thing that should be left behind at the ATF, if anything, is those civil regulatory functions necessary to ensure you have federal firearms licensees. Someone has to administer the applications for the various FFLs. Someone has to administer the NFA process of getting a tax stamp and whatnot for your items that fall within the definition of an NFA item. Someone's got to do that mechanical work to make sure that continues to work, and that could be a much slimmer, leaner, meaner ATF in a sense, or they could simply move those functions from the ATF into a different part or into the Department of the Treasury, because really, if you think about it, it's kind of collecting taxes. But anyway, the bottom line is, as long as, in my view, as long as the ATF no longer has federal law enforcement authority, you take away the power to arrest, you take away the power to carry guns, you take away the power to do all sorts of things that the police do, that the FBI does, you have dramatically shrunk the power of the ATF and turned them into nothing more than civil regulators, on par with like your local Department of Motor Vehicles, or on par with like the local title office or the county clerk office or something like that. They're just functionaries, processing paperwork. And again, if they come across a crime or something, they can pick up the phone and call the cops, call 911, call the FBI, like you and I can do today. We can do that today. Somebody who works at the ATF, if they think they found something problematic, they should call another agency, the U.S. Attorney's Office, or whatever, and report it, right? If you see something, say something, they can still do that, but they should not have independent law enforcement duties, because as I've explained in other videos, the reality is that when you give the ATF these powers of arrest, the powers to carry a gun, you allow them to be law enforcement agents, you create a perverse incentive for those agents to go out there and justify their existence, to show they're just as good as the FBI agents, or to show they're better than the FBI agents. And that creates an incentive for them to take certain risks with, projects like Fast and Furious, gun walking, doing stuff with the Mexican government, Waco, Ruby Ridge, the shooting in the Arkansas airport, and so on and so on. You basically are incentivizing them to sort of take risks to justify their existence, to show they're just as good as their big brother at the FBI and things like this. And that is a dangerous incentive when you care about freedom and liberty. And again, they really seem to be redundant. There's no law that an FBI law enforcement agent cannot pursue that an ATF law enforcement agent can do so. So if you're Elon Musk, if you're Doge, you're looking to cut back on waste, fraud, and inefficient spending, and cutting back on the size of the federal bureaucracy, it seems to me that eliminating the federal law enforcement agents that work within the ATF for the ATF, they should be gone. And as far as I'm concerned, the whole ATF can be gone, with the exception that someone does need to process the FFL forms and the NFA items and the tax stamps and whatnot. And whether you do that in a very, very small little 500-person ATF that just does the civil regulatory stuff, or you move those assignments to another agency like the Department of Treasury, that's kind of above my pay grade, if you will. But that's something. Any of those things would be much better than what we have right now, which is law enforcement agents at ATF that can go after gun folks for malum prohibitum crimes, victimless crimes, and nonsense like that. And we really should not be incentivizing law enforcement to go after these kinds of fake crimes where there's no victim. They're malum prohibitum. There's nothing evil or immoral or unjust about these. They're just arbitrary lines drawn on a piece of paper by some legislators 80 years ago or something like that. That is not really advancing public safety. And as Attorney General Pam Bondi and President Trump have both talked about, they're laser focused on trying to get violent thugs out of the country, the psychopaths, the terrorists, the cartels, the illegal aliens, all these people that endanger public safety from a physical violent component, they're the ones the Department of Justice wants to laser focus on, and not nonsensical things like, I've got the wrong trigger, or I've got the wrong size barrel, or I've got like a pistol brace attached to a pistol, all this kind of crap that goes on, because again, none of this advances public safety. This is just about harassing ordinary law-abiding Americans over nonsensical crimes that when people go to the mall, when they go out to shop, when they go to the restaurant, no one is saying, oh my God, someone might have a gun with a wrong size barrel in their closet, or someone might have some other bump stock in their closet, or some nonsense like this. That is not what causes American people to be scared. That is not what people fear when they go out in public. They fear violent and dangerous psychopathic nutjob thugs, and that is where the Department of Justice should be focused, and I'm happy to report as best I can tell that is exactly where the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi is focused. So there you have it, folks. Hope you learned a little bit something here today about the departure of Marvin Richardson. Sounds like a good outcome. We'll see who replaces him. We certainly know that we had a great switch when we swapped out Pamela Hicks for Professor Rob Leiter. who is very good on the Second Amendment. And, of course, he is now the chief counsel at the ATF, replacing Pam Hicks. And I'll put some articles about this down below. Tell me if you disagree with some of my opinions and views articulated in this video. And again, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you follow me on X at @4boxes. Don't forget to subscribe both on Rumble and YouTube. And I look forward to talking to all again really, really soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.